The night that changed everything. Jake Harrison never expected his routine night shift at the Pacific Deep Research Station to become the most important moment in human history. As a marine biologist, he had spent countless nights monitoring the ocean's depths, cataloging unknown species and studying the mysteries that lay beneath the waves. The isolated research platform, floating 300 miles from the nearest coast, had been his sanctuary for the past 2 years. The stars above the Pacific Ocean sparkled, like diamonds against the velvet darkness, when something extraordinary happened. A brilliant streak of azure light tore across the sky, different from any meteor Jake had ever witnessed. This object pulsed with an otherworldly energy, trailing sparkles of silver and gold as it plummeted toward the ocean's surface. Jake rushed to the observation deck, his heart pounding with excitement and curiosity. The object struck the water with a sound like thunder, sending massive waves rippling outward from the impact site. But instead of sinking immediately, a soft glow emanated from beneath the surface, growing brighter with each passing second. Without hesitation, Jake launched the emergency rescue boat. His years of training kicked in as he navigated through the choppy waters toward the mysterious light. As he approached the crash site, he could see something floating just beneath the surface. It wasn't debris or wreckage, but something that looked almost human. The rescue diving into the warm Pacific waters, Jake swam toward the glowing figure. What he found defied all logic and reason. Floating unconscious in the water was a woman, but unlike any human he had ever seen. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, shifting between pale silver and soft blue in the moonlight. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, and intricate patterns resembling constellations seemed to shimmer just beneath her skin. She wore no diving gear, no protection against the crushing depths, yet somehow she had survived the impact. Jake carefully lifted her from the water, amazed by how light she felt, despite appearing fully grown. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and her body temperature seemed to fluctuate between cool and warm. Back on the research platform, Jake laid her on a medical examination table in the station's small infirmary. As he checked her vital signs, he noticed that her pulse followed an unusual rhythm, almost musical in its pattern. Her eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids, as if she were experiencing vivid dreams. First contact hours passed before the mysterious woman began to stir. Jake had remained by her side, monitoring her condition and trying to process what had happened. When her eyes finally opened, they were unlike anything he had ever seen. They held the depth of distant galaxies, swirling with colors that seemed to shift from deep purple to brilliant silver. She sat up slowly, looking around the unfamiliar surroundings with a mixture of confusion and wonder. When her gaze met Jake's, something passed between them, a moment of recognition that transcended language and species. She spoke then, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but the words were in no language Jake recognized. "You're safe," Jake said softly, holding up his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I'm Jake. I pulled you from the water." She tilted her head, studying him with intense curiosity. Slowly, she repeated his name, Jake, and the way she said it made it sound like music. Then, touching her chest, she said, "Nyla." The name fit her perfectly. Jake smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "Nyla," he repeated, and her lips curved into the first smile he had seen from her. Learning to communicate over the following hours, Jake and Nyla began to establish a basic form of communication. She was incredibly intelligent, picking up English words with remarkable speed. Through a combination of gestures, simple drawings, and her rapidly improving vocabulary, she began to share fragments of her story. Nyla came from a place she called the Celestial Realm, a dimension that existed alongside Earth but remained hidden from human perception. She was what her people called a guardian, someone chosen to protect the balance between worlds. But something had gone wrong in her realm, forcing her to flee to Earth for safety. She showed Jake a pendant she wore, a crystal that pulsed with the same soft light as her skin. When she held it, images flashed through Jake's mind, visions of beautiful crystal cities floating among the stars, of beings of light and energy living in harmony with the cosmos. But there were darker images too, shadows that consumed light, creatures of pure malevolence that sought to destroy everything beautiful in the universe. These beings, which Nyla called the Void Seekers, had discovered her realm and were systematically destroying everything in their path. The growing Days passed. Jake found himself drawn to Nyla in ways he couldn't explain. It wasn't just her otherworldly beauty, though she was certainly stunning. It was her spirit, her courage, and the way she looked at the world with such wonder and compassion. She was fascinated by Earth's oceans, spending hours watching the marine life through the observation windows. Jake taught her about Earth's creatures, showing her the research data and live feeds from the underwater cameras. In return, she shared knowledge of her realm, describing creatures of pure energy that swam through space itself, and plants that grew from starlight rather than soil. Their connection deepened with each passing day. Jake found himself looking forward to their conversations, to the way her eyes lit up when she discovered something new about his world. She, in turn, seemed to find peace in his presence, her initial wariness replaced by trust and something deeper, the warning signs. But their peaceful interlude couldn't last forever. On the fourth night since her arrival, Nyla woke screaming from a nightmare. Jake rushed to her side, finding her trembling and speaking rapidly in her native language. Her pendant pulsed with an angry red light, and for the first time since he had found her, Jake felt afraid. "They're coming," she whispered when she finally calmed down. "The Void Seekers, they found my trail." Jake held her close, feeling her fear as if it were his own. "How long do we have?" "Not long," she replied, her voice barely audible. "They consume everything they touch. They'll destroy your world just to reach me." As if summoned by her words, the ocean around the research station began to change. The water grew darker, and strange shadows moved beneath the surface. In the distance, Jake could see an unnatural storm forming, its clouds swirling with malevolent energy. The pendant around Nyla's neck pulsed brighter, and Jake realized that their time together was about to be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. The woman he was falling in love with wasn't just an alien refugee. She was the key to either saving or destroying both their worlds. As the first tendrils of the unnatural storm reached the research station, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He wouldn't let anything happen to Nyla, no matter what it cost him. Their love story was just beginning, and he was determined to fight for their chance at happiness, even if it meant facing the darkness that threatened to consume everything they held dear. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of two worlds, and at the center of it all was a love that transcended the boundaries of space and time itself. The storm arrives. The unnatural storm struck the research station with devastating force. Jake watched in horror as the ocean around them turned black as ink, while lightning crackled with colors that shouldn't exist in nature. The platform shook violently as massive waves crashed against its supports. each impact sending tremors through the metal structure. Nyla stood at the observation window, her pendant glowing brighter with each passing moment. The light emanated from her skin as well, creating intricate patterns that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Jake could see the fear in her eyes, but also a fierce determination that made his chest tighten with admiration. "The Void Seekers travel through dimensional rifts," she explained, her English now remarkably fluent despite having learned it only days ago. "They tear holes between worlds, consuming the energy that flows between dimensions. Your world has never experienced anything like this." Jake activated the station's emergency protocols, sealing the observation decks and switching to backup power. The research station had been built to withstand hurricanes and tsunamis. But this was unlike any natural disaster Earth had ever seen. As the storm intensified, something emerged from the churning waters. Creatures that defied description began to surface, their forms shifting between solid matter and pure shadow. They had no fixed shape, constantly morphing and writhing as they moved through the water with impossible speed. Dr. Rebecca Torres arrives through the chaos. Jake received an emergency transmission on the station's communication system. A helicopter was approaching despite the dangerous conditions, carrying his research partner and closest friend, Dr. Rebecca Torres. Rebecca was a brilliant xenobiologist who had been studying potential extraterrestrial life for over a decade. She had been on the mainland analyzing Jake's latest research samples when the storm began. Against all safety protocols, she had commandeered a military helicopter to reach the station. "Jake, what the hell is happening out there?" Rebecca's voice crackled through the radio as her helicopter fought against the unnatural winds. "Satellite imagery shows energy readings that are off the charts." The storm came out of nowhere. Jake looked at Nyla, who nodded slowly. It was time to trust someone else with their secrets. "Rebecca, you need to prepare yourself for something incredible. We're not alone out here." The helicopter landing was treacherous, with the pilot barely managing to set down on the station's helipad before the wind shifted again. Rebecca rushed inside, her dark hair whipping round her face. Carrying a case of scientific equipment she never went anywhere without. When she saw Nyla standing in the station's main laboratory, Rebecca stopped dead in her tracks. Her scientific mind immediately began cataloging every detail, from Nyla's luminescent skin to the way the air seemed to shimmer around her. "My God," Rebecca whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "You're not human, are you?" Building under studied Rebecca carefully before responding. Jake had told her about his research partner, describing her as someone who had dedicated her life to searching for proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. There was kindness in Rebecca's eyes, along with an insatiable curiosity that reminded Nyla of Jake. "I am Nyla of the celestial realm," she said, inclining her head in a graceful greeting. "Jake saved my life when I crashed into your ocean." Rebecca's scientific excitement was palpable, but she maintained her composure. "The energy readings we detected, the storm, it's all connected to your arrival, isn't it?" Over the next few hours, as the unnatural storm raged outside, the three of them worked together to understand the situation. Rebecca's scientific equipment detected energy signatures unlike anything in Earth's known spectrum. The readings confirmed what Nyla had told them about dimensional rifts and the creatures that traveled through them. Nyla shared more of her story, explaining that the celestial realm existed in a parallel dimension where her people had evolved to become beings of pure energy and light. They served as guardians of the cosmic balance, protecting younger civilizations from threats they weren't ready to face. The Void Seekers were once like us, Nyla explained, her voice heavy with sadness. But they chose a different path. Instead of protecting life, they began consuming it. They feed on the energy that flows between dimensions, growing stronger with each world they destroy. The connection deepens as they worked side by side. Jake found himself constantly aware of Nyla's presence. When their hands accidentally touched, while examining her pendant under Rebecca's equipment, he felt a jolt of energy that seemed to connect them on a fundamental level. Nyla felt it too, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his heart race. Rebecca noticed the connection between them, the way they moved in harmony despite having known each other for only a few days. There was something beautiful about their bond, something that transcended the usual barriers between species and worlds. The pendant, Rebecca observed, studying the readings from her instruments. It's not just a piece of jewelry, is it? It's some kind of key. Nyla nodded solemnly. It contains the essence of my realm's core energy. The Void Seekers want it because, with this power, they could tear open permanent rifts between dimensions. They would be able to consume entire galaxies without having to search for temporary passages. The implications were staggering. If the Void Seekers succeeded in taking the pendant, Earth would become their next feeding ground, and from there they could spread throughout the entire universe. The first attack, as if responding to their discussion. The storm suddenly intensified. The research station's hull groaned under the pressure as something massive struck it from below. Through the reinforced windows, they could see shadowy tentacles rising from the black water, each one as thick as a tree trunk and writhing with malevolent energy. The first Void Seeker had arrived. Jake activated the station's defense systems, though he doubted they would be effective against an interdimensional predator. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the creature wrapped its tentacles around the platform's support pillars. Nyla stepped forward, her pendant blazing with brilliant light. "I won't let them hurt either of you," she declared, and Jake could hear the power in her voice. She pressed her hands against the station's hull, and waves of energy flowed outward, creating a protective barrier around the entire structure. The Void Seeker recoiled as if burned, its tentacles releasing their grip on the platform. But the effort cost Nyla dearly. She staggered backward, her skin flickering between its usual luminescence and an alarming paleness. Jake caught her as she fell, feeling how much the protective barrier had drained her. "I can't maintain it for long," she whispered against his chest. "They're too strong, and there are more coming." Rebecca's discovery. While Jake held Nyla, Rebecca worked frantically, with her equipment, analyzing the energy patterns of both the Void Seeker and Nyla's defensive barrier. Her brilliant mind raced through possibilities, searching for a solution that might save them all. "The energy signatures," she said suddenly, her voice filled with excitement. "Nyla, your people's energy operates on a frequency that's almost perfectly opposite to the Void Seekers. Like matter and antimatter." Nyla raised her head, hope flickering in her eyes. "You think there might be a way to use that against them?" "Maybe," Rebecca replied, her fingers flying over her tablet as she ran calculations. "If we could amplify your natural energy signature and broadcast it through the station's communication array, we might be able to create a repulsion field that would force them back through their dimensional rift." Jake looked between the two women, seeing the beginning of a plan that might actually work. "What do you need?" Rebecca's expression grew serious. It would require Nyla to channel enormous amounts of energy through the station's systems. Risk to her would be extreme. She could burn herself out completely. The thought of losing Nyla made Jake's stomach clench with fear, but he could see the determination in her eyes. She was willing to sacrifice herself to protect Earth and its people. A moment of truth as more void seekers gathered around the research station. Their shadowy forms visible through the black water, Jake realized that their time was running out. The protective barrier Nyla had created was already beginning to weaken, and he could feel the creatures testing its strength. He took Nyla's hands in his, looking into her eyes with all the love and desperation he felt. There has to be another way. I just found you. I can't lose you now. Nyla's eyes filled with tears that sparkled like liquid starlight. Jake, if I don't do this, they'll destroy your world and everyone on it. I won't let that happen. Then we'll find another solution, Jake said firmly. The three of us, working together, we're not giving up. Rebecca looked up from her equipment, a new idea forming in her mind. Wait, what if we don't have to choose between saving the world and saving Nyla? What if there's a way to do both? The Void Seekers were growing bolder, their attacks on the protective barrier becoming more frequent and intense. But as Rebecca explained her new theory, hope began to bloom in all their hearts. The bond between Jake and Nyla, the trust that had grown between all three of them, and the combined knowledge of two worlds might just be enough to find a solution that would save everyone. The final confrontation was approaching, and they would face it together, united by love, friendship, and the determination to protect everything they held dear. The plan unfolds. Rebecca's eyes blazed with scientific fervor as she outlined her revolutionary theory. What if the bond between you and Jake isn't just emotional? She asked Nyla, her voice trembling with excitement. What if it's creating a bridge between human and celestial energy signatures? The research station shuddered as more void seekers emerged from the dimensional rift, their writhing forms growing larger and more aggressive. The protective barrier around the platform flickered dangerously, showing signs of imminent collapse. Nyla studied the readings on Rebecca's equipment, her luminescent skin pulsing brighter as she processed the implications. You believe that our connection could amplify my power without destroying me. More than that, Rebecca explained, her fingers dancing across multiple screens. Human neural patterns operate on electromagnetic frequencies. If Jake could somehow link his consciousness with yours during the energy discharge, he might be able to stabilize your life force while you channel the repulsion field. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. What exactly would that involve? Before Rebecca could answer, a massive impact shook the entire station. Through the reinforced windows, they could see that dozens of void seekers had gathered, their shadowy forms creating a writhing mass of darkness around the platform. The protective barrier sparked and wavered, clearly on the verge of failure. The arrival of human force is suddenly. The storm parted to reveal a fleet of military vessels approaching at high speed. Helicopters filled the sky, while destroyers and cruisers formed a defensive perimeter around the research station. Jake recognized the insignia of the Global Defense Initiative, an international military organization that handled unusual threats. How did they find us? Jake wondered aloud, but Nyla's expression had grown pale with worry. I've been sending regular reports to GDI about our research, Rebecca admitted reluctantly. When the energy readings spiked, they must have decided to investigate. The lead helicopter's loudspeaker crackled to life with an authoritative voice. This is Admiral Catherine Stone of the Global Defense Initiative. We're here to secure the extraterrestrial entity and contain the dimensional breach. Prepare for immediate evacuation. Nyla stepped back from the windows, her pendant pulsing with agitated light. They want to capture me. They don't understand. That separating me from the pendant will only make the Void Seekers stronger. Jake moved protectively in front of her. They're not taking you anywhere. The military forces began deploying strange-looking weapons, devices that hummed with electromagnetic energy. Rebecca's equipment detected massive power buildups from the ships, suggesting they were preparing to fire some kind of experimental weapon at the dimensional rift. The race against time, they're going to make everything worse, Nyla said urgently. Those weapons will destabilize the rift, making it permanent. The Void Seekers will have unlimited access to your dimension. Rebecca was already working frantically to modify the station's communication array. Then we need to act now, before the military interferes. Jake, are you ready to try this? The protective barrier around the station finally collapsed with a sound like breaking glass. Immediately, the Void Seekers surged forward, their tentacles reaching for the platform's hull. The station's emergency systems screamed warnings as the creatures began to drain energy directly from the power grid. Jake took Nyla's hands, feeling the electric tingle of her touch. Tell me what I need to do. Nyla's eyes met his, filled with love and determination. You'll need to open your mind completely to mine. It will be dangerous for both of us. Our consciousness will merge temporarily, and there's no guarantee we'll both survive the separation. I trust you, Jake said simply, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The mind meld Rebecca finished her modifications to the communication array just as the first Void Seeker's tentacles smashed through one of the station's outer walls. Alarms blared as the creature's touch began corrupting the metal itself, turning it black and brittle. Now or never, Rebecca shouted over the chaos. Nyla placed her pendant against the modified communication console while Jake pressed his palms against her temples. The moment their skin made contact, Jake felt his consciousness explode outward. Merging with Nyla's in a rush of cosmic awareness, suddenly, he could see through her eyes, feel through her senses, experience the universe. As a being of pure energy, the sensation was overwhelming, like trying to contain an ocean in a teacup. But somehow Nyla's presence helped him maintain his sanity. Through their merged consciousness, Jake experienced Nyla's memories of the celestial realm. He saw cities of crystal and light floating among the stars, beings of incredible beauty and wisdom tending to the cosmic balance. He felt her pain as the Void Seekers had destroyed her home, consuming the light of entire star systems. But he also felt her love for him, pure and powerful, flowing through their connection like liquid starlight. That love became their anchor, keeping them both grounded as they channeled unimaginable amounts of energy through the station's systems. The military intervention as the repulsion field began to build. Admiral Stone's voice crackled over the radio again. Unknown individuals at the research station, cease all activities immediately. We're detecting dangerous energy levels that could threaten the entire region. The military ships opened fire with their experimental weapons, sending beams of crackling energy toward the dimensional rift. The effect was catastrophic. Instead of closing the rift, the weapons tore it wider, allowing even more Void Seekers to pour through from their dark dimension. They're making it worse. Rebecca screamed over the growing chaos. The rift is expanding. Through their merged consciousness, Jake and Nyla felt the arrival of something far worse than the tentacled creatures they had been fighting. A massive intelligence, ancient and malevolent, began to push through the enlarged rift. This was one of the Void Seeker's masters, a being of such concentrated darkness that its mere presence began to drain the light from the stars overhead. The ultimate choice, the repulsion field, was almost ready, but Jake could feel the tremendous strain on both their life forces. Nyla's energy was burning through him like fire, while his human consciousness provided the stability she needed to maintain control. Together, they were more powerful than either could be alone, but the cost was enormous. Jake, Nyla's voice echoed in his mind, "I need you to let go. The field requires more power than both of us can survive." "No," he replied through their connection. "We're in this together. We'll find another way." But Rebecca, monitoring their vital signs, could see what they couldn't. "Jake, her energy signature is destabilizing. If you don't release the connection, soon you'll both be consumed." The Void Seeker Master was almost through the rift now, its presence causing reality itself to bend and warp around it. The military ships were retreating, their weapons useless against a being that existed partially outside normal space-time. Jake realized that Nyla was right. To save Earth, to save everyone he had ever cared about, one of them would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. But as he prepared to release their connection, Nyla made the choice for both of them. The transformation, "I love you." Jake Harrison of Earth, Nyla whispered through their bond, "Remember me among the stars." Before Jake could stop her, Nyla severed their mental connection and poured her entire life force into the repulsion field. Her body blazed with light so brilliant it could be seen from space, and waves of pure celestial energy erupted outward from the research station. The effect on the Void Seekers was immediate and devastating. The tentacled creatures dissolved like shadows before the dawn, their forms unable to maintain coherence in the face of such concentrated light. The massive intelligence trying to push through the rift shrieked in a voice that shattered windows on the military ships before being hurled back into its own dimension. But Nyla paid the ultimate price. Her physical form began to dissolve, becoming one with the energy field she had created. Jake reached for her desperately, but his hands passed through her fading substance like mist. "Don't leave me," he pleaded, tears streaming down his face. Nyla's form was almost completely transparent now, but her voice still reached him. "I'm not leaving, my love. I'm becoming part of your world, part of you. Our bond will never truly be broken." The aftermath, a dimensional rift, collapsed in on itself, with a sound like reality healing, sealing the passage between worlds and ensuring that the Void Seekers could never again threaten Earth. The unnatural storm dissipated, revealing clear skies and calm seas. The research station, though damaged, remained intact. Jake collapsed to his knees, where Nyla had been standing, clutching the pendant she had left behind. It no longer pulsed with cosmic energy, but had become a simple crystal, beautiful but ordinary. Yet when he held it, he could swear he felt her presence, warm and comforting. Rebecca knelt beside him, her own tears falling freely. "Jake, I'm so sorry. The readings show that her energy signature dispersed throughout the entire electromagnetic field around Earth. In a way, she really has become part of our world." Admiral Stone and her forces boarded the station an hour later, finding Jake and Rebecca sitting quietly in the ruins of the laboratory. The Admiral was a stern woman in her 50s, but her expression softened when she saw Jake's grief. "We monitored the energy discharge," she said gently. "Whatever happened here, it saved us all. The rift readings have completely disappeared." Jake looked up at her with hollow eyes. "Her name was Nyla. She was a guardian, a protector. She saved your world, and you'll probably never even know her name." The new beginning. 6 months later, Jake stood on the deck of a new research vessel, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in shades of gold and crimson. The Global Defense Initiative had offered him unlimited funding for his research, hoping to understand more about the cosmic forces that threatened and protected Earth. Rebecca had become his partner in this new endeavor, helping him establish a monitoring network that would watch for future dimensional incursions. They called it the Celestial Guardian Project, named in honor of the woman who had saved them all. Every night, Jake would stand on the deck and look up at the stars, holding Nyla's pendant and remembering their brief but incredible time together. Sometimes, when the conditions were just right, he could swear he saw patterns in the aurora that reminded him of her luminescent skin. The electromagnetic field around Earth had indeed changed since Nyla's sacrifice. Scientists worldwide reported subtle improvements in everything from radio communications to weather patterns. It was as if she had left behind a gift, a gentle influence that would protect humanity for generations to come. Jake never married, never fell in love again. How could he, when his heart belonged to a guardian of starlight who had become one with the cosmos itself? But he wasn't unhappy. His work with Rebecca led to discoveries that revolutionized humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. They established protocols for peaceful contact with other civilizations, created early warning systems for cosmic threats, and gradually prepared humanity for the truth that they were not alone. Jake made sure that Nyla's story was recorded, preserved for future generations who would need to understand the sacrifice that had been made for their protection. On quiet nights at sea, when the stars seemed especially bright, Jake would whisper her name to the wind and feel a warmth in his chest that assured him their love transcended the boundaries between dimensions. Nyla had become Earth's eternal guardian, and their bond had become part of the very fabric of reality itself. The alien who had crashed into his ordinary life had changed everything, not just for Jake, but for all of humanity. And somewhere in the dance of electrons around every atom, in the gentle push and pull of magnetic fields that protected Earth from cosmic radiation, her love continued to shelter the world she had died to save. The story of Jake and Nyla became legend, proof that love could indeed transcend any barrier, any distance, any difference between beings from separate worlds. And in the end, that love had become the greatest gift one universe could give to another.